we don't get any big tuna in close. The most of the tuna we're getting close is sort of sub 20 kilograms, sorry. Some big ones down at the 9 Mile Reef down here at Tweed. But generally speaking, they're in that sort of 3 to 8 kilo class, and that's the yellowfin. We do get some odd big yellowfin tuna come into Palm Beach Reef, Mermaid, off Jumping Pin, up to 20 or 30 kilos has been the odd ones caught by our customers. The biggest longtail I probably caught off the pin quite a few years ago might have been around 14 kilos. It's not a real big one, but they're around. Westerly winds and winters, we've been seeing mainly the longtails out here. Yellowfin tunas now, that's what we're doing in the seminar now. So that's in close. The yellowfin out here, out further, they're in around sort of, they're all year round, but they're predominantly around September, October, November. And that's the sort of 30 to 80 kilo size, the big ones. Okay. So they're on the bottom end of those GPS marks. And there's marks there off Point Lookout, marks off Jumping Pin, and marks down off Tweed Head. So all on all those canyon areas and seamounts. These are all marks I've used over time. Okay. Yep. So we'll start at what you need, the gear. So, and the reason we talk about when you're fishing for tuna, your bycatch is definitely going to be wahoo and dolphin fish, okay, because you're using the same gear. So that's expected at this time of the year. Yeah. So Stu, we'll start with the spin rod, mate. Yeah.
Start with the light gear.
Yeah, light gear. So we'll get there, Stu.
So this is just a, it's a 4,000 Daiwa reel. Now it's probably around about a 6,000. They've changed their sizing, but anywhere 4 to 6,000 size and say 20-pound braid.
Yeah, I think it's 30 on that one actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we just use a 50-pound leader. You do get the odd mackerel or possibly a wahoo or dolphin fish and stuff with quite prickly or sharp teeth. So that's the reason for that 50-pound leader.
I still bite through it like a hot 9-through butter there.
Yeah, exactly right. But and just to a metal, so spinning metals are predominantly the most popular way of catching tuna. Once they're schooled up and feed in on the top, inside of that, say 24 fathom line. But yeah, and then obviously we've got a heavier combo for the further out stuff.
Yeah, so the little light spinnet combo, like for you guys that fishing close at this time of the year, you should definitely have one of those rigged up. We were out the other day, we got some Spanish and on the way back in, we saw some, I actually got some snapper that day, sorry. But yeah, the tuna were busting up and I had said that, I flicked it out straight away and they were only, they were skipjack tuna or stripies. Really good sashimi though. And we just spun a couple straight away. But there's a lot of people don't understand, when you're chasing tuna, they're very deceiving. They disappear all the time. You get there and next minute you get your rod ready and they're already gone. They've disappeared off the surface and the crashing stopped and you get frustrated to the crap. You need to be one step ahead of them knowing where they're going to pop up again. That's a really important part. And not that I say I've nailed it, but we get pretty good at understanding where they're going to surface. So you need to sound around and try and find where the bait is. The bait moves obviously quick because they're chasing the bait, but they always seem to herd the bait into the wind and never with the wind. So they normally seem to gain distance. Say the wind's blowing from the south. Sorry, Stu. I've got a little diagram here, hard to see down the back. But the wind's blowing from the southeast, and my bait schools, this is about, say, 500 metres, this plotter area here, and the bait's here and here, and I've just sounded around it, and the wind's blowing this way, and I can see the birds and that over here. I'm not going to stop right here and cast into there because I know they're going to disappear before I get my rod out of the rod holder. So I'm actually going to go around out wide and come back up here. And first thing, the great thing is you're casting with the wind, not casting against it. And your boat's going to be facing the right way with the wind side on, whatever it might be. It just works heaps better. And they will start to pop up. If they disappear when you're going around them because you put them down, they will, because the bait's there, they will pop up. Generally, they push the bait up this way a bit further, closer to you. And that's always the trick, is to go with the wind. So if the wind's blowing from the north, you actually would attack it from this end here. So it's always into the wind. Have anyone ever noticed that before? Anyone have trouble with tuna disappearing in front of them all the time? I reckon you would have. If you don't, I'd like to know how they do it. Because they're a pain in the backside. But that's all tuna. It doesn't matter if it's a mac tuna or a yellowfin or longtail. It's all the same scenario. So there's a couple of things you need to do too. You need to understand your line, your braid. So there's no point having like a cheap, crappy 4-wrap or 3-ply 30-pound braid that's like 80-pound thickness in the better braids. You know what I mean? You need to have a 10-pound diameter or 15-pound diameter 30-pound braid. And that allows you, because they're not going to be feeding on, I didn't bring any big ones up here, but that's going to be the biggest metal they're going to be feeding on. It's about 40 grams. But they're going to be more likely feeding on little things like this little 20 grammer. And you need to throw that 100 metres with 30-pound braid. So if you've got cheap braid, I reckon you get maybe 22 metres maybe. If you've got good braid, you'll get 60, 80, 100 metres depending on how full it is and all that sort of stuff. So you need to make it easier for you in everything you can do to get the fish. Okay, so that means having the right rod, the right reel, match it up properly. Don't put a big 20,000 Saragossa with thick line on a short rod and expect to try and cast the distance. It won't work. So this is casting for tuna, okay? And have a few different little metals. Like metals are cheap as, so just have a few different ranges. I'll pass these around, just a few different types, Stewie. Thanks, mate. You understand what I'm saying. Right. And make sure you got a little bit of plastic off the hooks. So many guys, they leave the plastic on the hooks. So at the night time before I go out, I get my little scissors out and chip it, cut them all off. I know it's painful, but by law we've got to have plastic on the hooks and when on display. Make sure your rod and reel's right. And your leader, Sue said 50 pound. We do use 50 pound if we know we're chasing long tails and stuff like that, but just small tuna up to maybe 10 kilos, I'm using 30 pound fluorocarbon. Okay, and only a metre, just a metre, that's all you need. Try and have that knot hanging outside your rod every time you cast. You get a lot better cast again. Another 10%, 15% more distance because it doesn't clunk out through the guides. It's all about distance.
Yeah, you lose a lot of power with that knot. However good your knot is, even if it's an FG and it's perfect, you still lose a lot of energy by hitting those guides.
Momentum is very important. Yeah. And weight is, so the only weight thing you can sort of get away with maybe would be, and bigger size would be, obviously, if the tuna are bigger, or if you chase a mackerel or something that are like a Spanish mackerel, you could use 60 or 80 gram lures, and then you could cast your chunkier type gear and get distance, but you don't want to throw it in that because you'll probably snap the lure off or snap something, the rod tip maybe. So it's all relative and you have to get that right. The other thing I use for tuna is, hey Stuart, these things, you get a lot of customers.
Plastics go really good. Pink's definitely the big seller of that bubblegum colour, and they just kind of respond to it when they're not eating the metals as much. That's right. And just run them on about a ½ ounce head.
I'll pass that around too. Yep. That's the sort of jig head you marry up to something like that. So guys, a lot of guys use metals for tuna, but these things actually rip. They're really good. Yeah. But it has to be pink. White's not too bad, and preferably fork-tailed, not paddle-tail. And you rip it really fast and stop, rip really fast, stop. So technique is cast out as far as you can. The problem is this time of year you have mackerel with the tuna, right? And it's a chance you'll take, let it sink, the mackerel bite off. We talked about this before. But I always take the chance, and I like it to sink at least a metre, because if you throw it out and then straight away wind real fast, it's skipping across the top, it's not natural. It doesn't quite look right, and they don't like it. So we switched to letting it sink a bit, wind real fast, stop just at 1 second, real quick before you wind again, and just that pause, it'll sink just enough to keep it underwater for the next pause, the next pause, all the way back. But you get hit on those pauses in between. So it just flutters a bit and before you wind again, and that's what they really like. So try that technique if you don't mind. Tuna have a really good run. They're really great fighters. When you get around, they do a circle a little bit, especially yellowfin. It's just a matter of tiring them out. You can't do much about it. If you go too hard, you'll break your 30-pound leader or your line. You're going to use 20-pound minimum, 30-pound preferably in your braids. There are braids we showed before last seminar. The guys are here. That was 30 pounds, 50-pound diameter, as we said. And a lot of brands now are getting right down really thin, so load your spills up with that. That's spinning. Any questions on spinning them? I'll just show you one other thing too, which we do use, which Stu and I love.
I really like the sinking stick bait style. Yeah. Particularly works if they're on a bit bigger bait. Like I'll spin metals if they're eating the real small stuff. But if they're on like say pillies or yakkers occasionally and stuff like that, I always go for like a sink and stick bait style. So it's a bit more body. They still cast really good. This one's from Jackson, and it's a sink-in one, and they've still got plenty of weight to cast, but they work really well.
So any of the Japanese type lures, these are Japanese of course, they're a little bit more expensive, but at the end of the day, you're taking the time off to get out there for the day, you've spent a lot of money on fuel and your boats or whatever, and you pay an extra maybe $10 a lure, but it's 10 times better.
Yeah.
The action and everything. And once you use these lures or something of that quality, you'll understand what we're talking about, because you just won't go back to some of the other brands that you might be using.
Yeah, the finish is way better. You never have to change the hooks or rings on it. They're super strong out the packet. And
Yeah, they work well.
yeah.
Yeah. The other technique. So any questions on the casting? That's probably better. We're going to cover on casting for in close. Okay. Next technique is trolling little skirts around. So it's all relative to the tuna size. So you will catch a 20 kilo tuna on that size, no problems at all. These will work from about 4 knots, but preferably around 6, 8, or even maybe 10, but 6 and 8 is good. And little skirts like this type of thing here. And they've got to be pointy nosed and not a short, fat type nose. You don't want to push, you want it to go burning through the water like your lure was. And with this type of thing here, we're dropping them back quite a fair distance, so around about 60 metres minimum. Okay. A bit hairy down at Palmy, you've got a million boats zooming around, but they work really well. And another technique to use, these are quite good too, so I think they're flashy as well. Pass those around as well.
And what size hooks in that type of stuff, Doug?
Yeah, sorry, I ran about a 5.0 or 6.0, Stuart. Yeah.
So we'd run them the same as you would rig a marlin style.
With smaller, down size.
Everything's smaller, but.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you could run those on, well, there's a hard part, Wahoo like eating those too. So do you rig them on wire? Look, you will get bigger tuna on wire, but little ones might be a little bit fussy. I'd probably take the chance and run them on mono, maybe put a little tiny bit of wire in front of your hook, just a little bite trace. You could even run that out to the top of the lure, and then you'd have to either, some of the lighter, if you had like up to about 90-pound trace, you could probably do an Albright on it and join the leader, say 60-pound leader, fluorocarbon 50, to the wire with an Albright. But you wouldn't be able to do it much heavier in the wire than that. But generally when we're using little marlin lures, we're running like 285-pound wire, but it's too heavy to do an Albright on. You'd have to sort of crimp it with crimps above the lure, but that might attract wahoo and mackerel even more to shiny. Okay, any questions on the towing those sort of things around? I just wanted to talk about casting, just little stick baits, that little fella there too.
Yeah.
So you have 2 types of stick baits. The ones we've got going around, the Japanese ones, they're actually like a subsurface type lure, and every time you twitch it, it darts like that under the water. Some have a swim action, some have a little bib, some have no bib. This particular one has no bib at all, but it's a surface type lure with the nose out and works on the top of the water like that, which tuna really like, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, I find that like top water walk is really good on like a glass out day.
Yeah.
When it's quite flat. If it's any type of chop, it's just a bit hard keeping it in the water.
True.
Yeah, not lately.
No. Yeah. Guys, the other technique in fishing in close, by far my favourite, is drifting with just baits out. So I like spinning too, by the way, but anyhow. I like to either anchor or burley drift, similar to what we're going to do with cubing out wider, but works in close. So has anyone here have a cube for tuna at all from down south? No one's from down south? Yeah, you know how it works, yeah. So you need lots of pilchards, like 2 blocks of burley minimum, okay? And you need to not totally defrost it, but half frozen. But if it's too frozen, it'll float. You want it to sort of semi go down, so it needs to be fairly defrosted. And then you cut up like a pilchard into maybe 10 slithers at least, or 6 slithers, and you want the whole bait board to be burley, okay? And it's the same technique out wider, and we're using it in close, so I'm actually using little light rods like the spin rod there, and or a little bait caster or a little overhead. Overhead's the trouble is you can't really cast it, and because you're only using pilchard with no sinker, it's hard to cast, right? So you actually got to strip the line off and just let it go down to the burley trail. But egg beaters, you can sort of cast it out to the burley trail, or you can just leave the bar open and it's the tide will take it out. So they're a bit easier. But what we're using is about 30-pound fluorocarbon and around about a 3.0 or a 4.0 hook in this status here, which I get Stu to pass around. And I'm running about 1 metre of leader. On that size, I'm running like just my braid straight to that metre of leader, or 2 metres max, but 1 metre preferably. And this is a hook at the end of it. I'll use circle hooks on the big tuna out wide, but I don't use them in close. I use just octopus type hooks, and in 3.0 and 4.0, and hiding that in the pilchard. So we're cutting the pilchard in half on an angle. I never use the head part, I use the tail part, but I cut the tail off. And I use the part just in front of the tail up to the centre where I cut it on a bit of an angle. And I'm putting the hook in at where the tail was in that sort of area, and pulling the whole hook out, then digging it into where I chopped it off into that quite chunky area. And the hook's very hidden, okay? And then I'm just throwing my pilchard out on my line, of course, and I throw a heap of burley with it, another little burley over there, and my mate will throw his pilchard out as well. And we're just drifting, and about every sort of in close, about every 5 to 10 minutes, you need to re-throw out again. And just check your bait about every 10 minutes maximum as well, because you've got a lot of demersals, like this little red rock cod and other stuff will come up and annoy the crap out of you, but you get the tuna amongst all that as part of the parcel. The yakkers will eat it, you get one of those choking through that life. Suicidal, but that's his mission. So it's part of the bycatch, but you will get the yellowfin tuna with it. And this works really well on palmy, mermaid, and also gravel patch, and definitely on the 24s at the Diamond Reef. So you get mackerel and yellowfin at the same time this time of year doing that technique. But with the mackerel, I use another line to be out with a gang hook on. I use a real small gang, like a 3.20s. And I'm using, again, still my 30-pound leader. I'm taking the risk. But generally, a gang, very rarely I get bitten off. Okay? And I'm also spinning the burley trail while that's all out there. Okay? So you do everything. And you get the yellowfin on the metal spinning as well. And it's all around that size. Chunky little fellas. Yeah. Any questions on that at all? Yes, mate. Dave.
When you're setting up your trolling,
yes.
What are you looking for on the sound?
Okay, so I'm looking for where the bait is and looking for where the tuna. Sometimes you'll see like the little arches in the bait. They could be mackerel, Dave. They could be tuna, hopefully, in this scenario. And I'm trying to work out. I'll do always a couple of laps. While that's going on, I've got deep divers out, hoping to get something there as well. So I never miss an opportunity. So it's just go until the time we leave home, until the time we get back. So I'll put some divers out, and or some skirts, and I'll troll around, find where the bait is, try and find where the fish are, mark it, and then I might do a drift through it, or I might think, okay, the fish are stacked there, up the few on the high and the bait, and there's a lot down lower, and that's where I'm going to anchor up and try and bring them up to my burley if they're down lower. And the same with the tuna out wider, they're a lot deeper, but we'll talk about that a bit later, but you've got to bring them up as well, maybe 100 metres, so yeah, they will come up. Any other questions on that at all, folks? We're going to keep going through, there's a lot to talk about tonight, so but that's predominantly enclosed. So with live baits, if you are in a situation of you're catching tuna, they love live baits as well as everything else does, especially mac tuna, unfortunately. But that's again part of the parcel. But mac tuna is great to catch. But you know, overseas, if you caught a mac tuna, you'd be like a hero. Like it's a great thing. But over here, it's like crap. You want to stab it. But it depends on what you like to do. But bait jigs, try and stick in. These are the 3 most popular bait jigs I like to use. Stu likes to use as well.
Yep.
We like the rainbow film.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And size 6 or 8, I'll pass those around too. Try and get these type of jigs, guys, if no matter where you get them from. But with that film on the hook is the most important part. Get your live bait and always have a livey out, because like the chances of getting so many different types of fish, from snapper, even on the close reefs, dewies, cobia, that's all right, mate. They're tough rods, tough tests. cobia, and obviously mackerel and wahoo and everything. So if you got a bit heavier line in the boat or on your ski or whatever, mate, put a livey out, 100%. Okay. What do you down at who fishes Palm Beach here? Any guys fish Palm Beach Reef here? Quite a few of you. So my favourite horn on Palm Beach is the northern end of Palm Beach Reef. I find too many boats get down the south in the middle there. I sort of stick away from those guys. I like the inside northern end of Palmy, and I like the outside sort of mid to northern end of Palmy. That's my two areas I really like. But I will do a lap around everyone and see how they're going if I'm in the area. But that's where I'm mainly going to, if I'm going to anchor or drift, that's the two areas I'm going to fish. I find the tuna really good in close, but sometimes the bait does hang out wider. You've just got to try a bit of both. Mermaid Reef, same scenario. Mermaid Reef, I like the northern end of Mermaid Reef as well. And you have, I always like, there's two areas I like. You've got the patch of boats, and then there's in close to shark dance, a bit of coffee rock and a bit of bait always in there, and some really good fishing. And you're about 200 metres away, like not visually, unless you've got good eyes. They can't see how you're going, sort of thing, for a while until someone catches on, and you can have a real good field day. So just try that northern end again of Mermaid in closer. Otherwise, just come back a bit from the northern end of the pack. You sort of need to be about 2/3 way up to from south to north, in the middle. Okay. And Mermaid Beach Reef is a very unusual reef to troll skirts or troll lures around. It changes every day, so they will only take lures sometimes going southwest to northeast, and they only like it going north. When you go south, you get nothing. And then other days, they won't like that. They want you to go inside edge, only going south. You've got to work out which way the fish like it. And I'll do like U-turns and go all over the joint until I get a strike, and then I'll be guaranteed every time I go that same way, I'll get more strikes. So you need to work that out too. Okay? And that's the same with your drift pattern. You must drift the same way. You got to go up that end to go down to that way, even though it may be against the wind, it's a bit hard, but you need to work it out which way you're drifting to the fish bite. That's probably a bit on Mermaid.
Yeah.
Gravel patch. So gravel patch this week, a couple of guys that got out during that massive swell during the week, and there wasn't much wind, it was a big swell, as always. They did get some really good wahoo down there, but the yellowfin, I didn't see much caught this week, but about a week ago it was quite good. I got some Saturday and Sunday 2 weekends ago. So, did anyone get out in that weekend at all? No? You guys watch TV or something? I don't know what you do. Anyhow, that weekend there's a few yellowfin caught out the front here and down there, and it's off Tweed as well. Okay, but that was mainly the gravel patch. Out of South, I think there's a couple of caught too.
Yeah.
There's a few wahoo and a few Spanish. Does anyone here fish down at Tweed at all? You do as well, mate? Yeah, so down at Tweed Heads, I'd probably start fishing at, is it the 10-minute reef, mate? 10-minute reef is where I'd start for yellowfin. Yep. That would be the shallowest, yep, which is just out in front of the bar a little bit. Inside the mud hole, I think it is, by memory. And then if you get out to the 9 Mile or a bit sharky? Off Fingal, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so that area is really good. May, about another month's time. Yeah. So once we start to get that first sort of west seas, that's when the tuna are at the best in close. So which is probably going to be next month, I dare say. Yeah, so just remember that too. Okay, and that's when the bait really, really stacks up. Okay, that's all about the bait. It's probably better in close, I think, Stuart.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we'll venture out just a little bit further. The 50 metre line is a really good area to get a lot of tuna and wahoo and dolphin fish normally, but the water this year is crap, it's dirty, and our 50 metre line is not the normal 50 metre line we normally have for this time of the year. So all those fish have been pushed out further and then just not hanging around like they would normally hang around. Whether we talk about it tonight or not, it's up to you guys, but I'll just quickly cover on that 50 metre line, which is the outside edge of the 24s off the front here, and doesn't matter if it's off Jumping Pin or down off Burley. It's just a really good area to look for yellowfin tuna, trolling skirts, and also trolling hard bodies. So it's funny, I've never caught many yellowfin tuna in close on hard bodies, but once they get out wider, they love hard body lures. I don't know why. So in close it's all skirts or casting or bait. Get out to 50 metres or 500 metres, doesn't matter. They like deep divers. Okay, so your mackerel lures. And speed-wise, you just go a little bit faster. You might get up around 7 or 8 knots for the tuna, more than 6 or 7 knots. Just a couple of knots faster. But I don't do much casting because they don't seem to come to the surface in that depth. They do out wide, but not between 50 metres, I'll say 40 metres, 45 metres, and maybe 300 metres. I've never seen many tuna on the surface in my life, I don't think. Has anyone ever struck tuna on the surface out here in those depths? I don't think you will. Yeah, it's weird, and I don't know why, but all of a sudden you get out there and they're all popped up everywhere out wide. But anyhow, so you troll deep divers. So that's one thing to remember. And then you don't get many yellowfin tuna on 100 metres either, not even trolling deep divers. It's 50 metres and then it's 300 metres. And so there's a big void. Catch lots of other fish there, but you just won't catch many yellowfin tuna. But before we go any further, I was going to talk about long-tailed tuna. Long-tailed tuna are going to be every year sort of start in May, but June, July, August off jumping pins probably the best spot off the Gold Coast, right at the back of the surf. So I know it's a long way to go on your ski, mate, but if you can get it up there and get out through the bar and go out there, that's a really good area. And they're right behind the break, and it's got to be westerly winds, and you'll see the bird, you'll see the bait, and you'll get them casting, you'll get them doing everything we just talked about. They're just a bit bigger than the yellowfin we're getting close, so the average size is around 12 to 20 kilo. Okay, so 30 pounds what you got to use. You can't use under 30, you'll get done. You need to be able to cast a long way though. They're a little bit finicky, but they're pretty aggressive and they hit hard, and it's just a great fun, and they're really good to eat as well. So longtail, I think we used to traditionally call them northern bluefin tuna. I think the same thing, is that right?
Yeah,
Same
they
thing?
are a northern bluefin.
Yeah, back in the day.
Yeah.
But I've been catching those out here. Didn't get much last year, but since I was a kid with my dad. So,
Yeah.
But we always go jumping in. That's where we get them. Okay. Out the front here, you get a few.
Yeah.
They get a few just up straight a little bit, I
They
think.
get a few just up Stratty, just near the blocks area.
Oh, okay.
Like halfway along.
Yeah.
They get a few off. I actually heard of a couple.
Down Burley.
Yeah, down
Yeah.
Burley way
Yeah, that's
already.
right, yeah.
Which is pretty early.
Yeah, and down at Palmy as well, mate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay, that's pretty early then. Yeah, okay. Yeah, and good size, mate. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah. So with those guys, was he trolling or casting, mate? Casting. Yeah. Yeah, they love casting, but I've caught lots and lots trolling skirts as well. So
They really like stick bait. So I think
and stick baits.
like longtail, either plastics or the stick baits are better than metals for them, I believe. But yeah.
Yep.
Unless they're on the real small bait, and then you can just only throw a metal. But
yeah, so up in Harvey Bay, they prefer soft plastics over metals. Yeah. Oh, you got soft plastics the other day. Yeah, that's right. You're onto it. Yeah, so if you're going to go further north, probably you still take metals, but take a lot of soft plastics, especially in pink. Okay. Stu, anything to add to that?
no, I don't think so.
So how many guys here troll like bigger lures? Has anyone done that sort of stuff out wider yet? A couple you have of? Yeah? Yeah, okay, so a few of you have. So how many want to give it a shot? A few of you want to have a crack at it? Yeah, good. So when you get up to the bigger tuna out wider, they're a little bit more different to the ones in closer. They're bigger for a start, but the technique changes a little bit. So we've got to find the bait, we've got to find the tuna, which can be relentless because sometimes they're down too deep and they don't want to come to the top, and other times, depends on where the bait is, of course, I was saying, you just need to put the time in and try and find the patch, or you look for birds. And for those of you who don't know how to look for birds, if you've got one of those radars on your boat that can pick up birds, that's good. I don't. I get Stewie's tall.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you've got to get up high. Yeah.
But generally speaking, you look, especially on a clear day, which doesn't happen very often these days, where it's just blue sky, but you look on the horizon, pan around, and it looks like a cloud on the horizon. And if you see that cloud very close to sea level, that's not a cloud, it's actually birds. So, and then you just pedal the metal, get over there and put your lures out and start trolling around, all casting stick baits and poppers and stuff like that, which we'll go through bit by bit. But my thoughts would be to either know they're in an area out there by talking to us, we talk to our customers, or we're out there ourselves, or take a punt on it and wait till around sort of August, September, October, when you know there's a good chance they're going to be there. I did a fair bit of time with a pro longliner out here for tuna, and September was always his best month, and I used to go with him in September. And we'd normally be in that 300 to 800 metre range, depth-wise, setting the long lines back those days. But they're big tunas too, up to 100 kilos nearly. So, and when they pop up in the schools can be nearly K big, like massive amounts. It's just a white froth, and you go frothing too. Yeah. So we're predominantly throwing, these days, well, those days we didn't because he wouldn't let me do it, but I'd throw stick baits in or poppers, guaranteed 100%, or troll skirts. So I'll quickly talk about this. So Stu, when I grab the stick bait rod there. So same as Stewie said, when you're in close, you have your metal ready to roll or your little stick bait ready to cast, always in your boat or whatever type of boat you got. But otherwise, out there, we're using something like this type of thing here. This takes up to 100-pound braid, and we're using stick baits, anything from this size here, which we'll pass around in a sec, up to bigger type things like that type of thing there. Okay. And with this type of thing, even though on that one there, that's actually, I think that's 89-pound braid, which is P5, which is normally 50-pound diameter. So I can get a good cast with that, and these things are like, well, that's 120 grams. So I can hook that out like 100 metres easy. So it's all relevant to the size of the lure they're using, right? The smaller fellow here is still nearly 50 grams, so you're still going to get like 60, 80 metres, 70 metres. But when they're thick everywhere, you don't have to cast very far. So that's sort of from one extreme to the other, what I'll be casting. And there's so many beautiful colours these days in lures to get the fishermen and us. But they will all work pretty well. Most of the ones these days are natural colours, they work really well. Okay. Poppers, so you'll get a lot of customers ask, should I cast a popper out there? And this is the same in close too, do I cast poppers or stick baits? My suggestion would be 5 stick baits to 1 popper, if that was what I have a lure range in my arsenal of weapons. I'd have 1 popper and rest stick baits, because stick baits just work too good. And they're a lot easier to use. So a popper, you've got to rake it and bloop it and get the water happening. And stick bait, you just work it like that, and it just goes like that through the water. Where these things, you got to really crank it to get it to work, and it's a lot harder. If you've got ever cast big poppers before up reef or anywhere, bloody hard work. Yeah, it's very hard work, and very tiring, very quick as I throw a cast net until the trawls come on. So I'll pass that around. But all these things are quite heavy, so you understand on that type of rod, it's very easy to throw it, and this goes a mile. I don't know if you've ever seen that video of my brother Paul when he caught the duck, and he threw it through it was one of the popper very similar to that one there, and he threw it, and then he's talking forever, and the thing's just still going, and a 150 metre cast, but they go a long way. So you want to, if you're going to intend to get there looking around trolling skirts, have at least 1 popper or 2 popper rods set up with something like that hanging off it, ready to roll. And if they come to the surface, forget about the skirts, even just leaving the water, and if they come up around you and start doing this, a lot more fun. Okay. Any questions on that at all? But predominantly, guys, while they're looking for the tuna, they'll either troll skirts or they'll troll hard bodies. That's like I was saying before. They work out to around that 50 metre line, then they don't work out to get at the 300 metre line. But they'll work obviously for wahoo and stuff. But this is the type of thing that we're trolling. And they're getting down around about 30 to 40 feet. One thing in tuna colours, like people ask about colours for tuna, what I use. We sell a lot of browns, like squid colours. Tuna loves squid, okay? And down south, like if you have a fish down south or the bluefin tuna down there, the number one selling skirt's generally brown and pink. In Tassie, it's brown and pink, and everywhere it's brown and pink. So now they do like squid hard bodies and squid lures, which I'll show you in a moment. But they're squid colours, and I haven't tried it yet on the yellowfin, but I reckon it'll smack it. Other things that work well are flying fish. They like eating flying fish too. And we have trillions of flying fish off the Gold Coast, from in close to out wide. And they can be from that big, not that big, to that big. So trolling a flying fish type pattern on the lure is a really good, clever idea as well. That's true. And the other thing we see lots of when we're out deep water fishing is saris. So saris are like a cross between a pilchard and a mullet, so to speak, a little bit longer. And they just shower out in schools at a football field size, and the whole water just goes like a mirror when they're showering. And so they do sari patterns as well for tuna. So that would be the three most popular colours to use in a hard body for tuna if you're trolling. And this is the same in close too, guys. If you go and troll in close, whether it be at Palmy or anywhere, that's their stable diet normally. Okay.
So generally more natural colours.
Natural to match the hatch. Yep. Yeah. So flying fish, and I've seen flying fish in at Palmy as well. So flying fish, squid, and saris. I've seen saris at 9 Mile explode like massive school. They're the same size as a freaking 9 Mile. Just showering. That's probably, that's a couple of the colours here. It's not too bad too, but that's the sort of most popular colours we'll be using. Oh, there is one more lure too, sorry. Yeah, go for it.
I was going to say, would you troll something that big in close?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, you'll still get like a 4 kilo yellowfin jump on that all day long. Yeah, but really, if I was at Palmy or Mermaid, they'd do a smaller version, or even smaller again, in something similar. Rapala do a couple of little ones in that sort of yellowfin style, at about probably a 14 size, or a 10 or 14. Yeah, just downsize. This is another amazing lure too. This is actually part of those stick baits that went around. This is a called G Control. It's a lure from Jackson, again, Japanese design. And it hunts at about 2 metres from the surface, but you can troll it up to about 14 knots. And I've trolled this at 14 knots. It has a stabiliser on the belly, so it doesn't blow out. It's a very clever idea. And it's built like a tank. And that's the flying fish colour, so I'd reckon that'd probably smack them as well. Yeah. So I just want to grab that 50 outfit there, Stu. Or actually, was this a 20? Either 2-speed 20 or 25, whatever.
Do you want the 20?
Yeah, right, yeah. 30, sorry. Yeah, that's it. So if I was going to go wide, like that's probably undergunned if you get an 80 kilo tuna on. But for fish up to about 40, 50 kilos, it would be okay. So that's a 2-speed 30 TLD with, I think I got 40-pound mono on that. And it's probably got around about 600 metres on there. So again, lines are like braid, lines getting thinner and thinner and thinner. So traditionally, we could only fit on 600 metres at 30 pound on a TLD 25 or a Tunos 30 or a TLD 30. But now this line's the Buku line, I can't remember the name of it, got downstairs. And our Buku, it's IGFA, it's Japanese line. And it's a 24 kilo, and that's the same thing as a 15. So it allows us to get on 600 metres at 24 kilo on a 30-pound reel rod. The drag on these will handle up to 50 pound. So they're 11 or 12 kilos of drag, I think, on these.
Yeah, I think it's about 11, but yeah.
Yeah, yep. And you can fish 24 kilo and still have 600 metres of line in there. So you could pull in a bigger yellowfin on that reel. Where before you just couldn't have the line capacity, 350 metres was it. So if you put 15 kilo on there and you want to have a bit of fun, you'd nearly get 900 metres on there now, because it's as thin as 10 kilo. You'd probably get 1,000 actually.
Okay, that's pretty close, yeah.
So line's getting thinner as well. Everything's come to our advantage, not the fish's advantage. Thanks, Stuart. And the 50 wide, mate. But most guys will use, when they go chasing those big yellowfin, like the bigger ones, they're using this type of thing here. Thanks, mate. So a 50 wide with either 50 or 80 pound mono or top shot braid or Dacron, whatever you're going to do. And the rod's 50, sort of 24 to 37 kilo. Because the fish are, you know, they're quite big and they're like bigger than, well, as big as me. 10 size. Yeah, but they're good size, thanks to it. So you need to have a little bit of heavy gear for it. And same with your popper and stick bait rod, needs to be at least a P5 or 6 in weight, okay, to handle it. The 30 pound one wouldn't work. It'll catch them, it'll hook them, but it won't land them,
Yeah.
unless you're lucky.
I mean, the other thing about like trolling out wide, like around 500 metres, is you're always a chance of getting a blue marlin or something. So you wouldn't want to go undergun.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, you're out in that area.
Yeah, I spoke to a guy today, they were at their, I think it was last Tuesday maybe or something, and they got a, I think it was 27 kilo dolphin fish. So it was a big dolphin fish. Everything's big out there because it's oceanic, it's travelling down the highway, the Great Nemo Highway, and feeding, and it's always big. So 30 pound tackle up there is a little bit undergun, so you need to up the ante to 50. So yeah, we get a lot of guys that bring in their smaller reels and we'll take the line off, put on spool for you for next time you go out and lighter stuff. And for that season, you throw on 24 kilo and take off the 15. And we'll spool it on, and when that time comes to use the 15, we take it back the other way. So we don't mind doing that for you when we're not busy, that is.
Yeah.
So that would be a suggestion, rather buy a whole new outfit again, as long as your rod can handle the 24 kilo. Okay. Skirts. So skirts for trolling out there, tuna love skirts too, and a lot of guys that are trolling for marlin catch tunas by catch. Personally, if I was chasing the specifically just tuna, I'd be fishing more hard bodies because I'm going to get less bycatch of marlin. I'll still get wahoo and I'll still get dolphin fish on them, on hard bodies, but definitely get more tuna, I believe. But if you're going to troll skirts, it needs to be something in that size or a bit smaller, one size down, sort of in that sort of size there, or that would be the smallest I'd use. I think you got one of your bags there anyhow, that sort of size, but it needs to be heavy because you're trolling about eight knots. It's not knot 6. So I think the one in bags is a heavy weighted one. And at the larger size, yeah, probably around the size of that, or maybe that would be, yeah, they're both about the same size, the other one's a bit bigger head. But about that size is the go. And there's an array of different styles. It has to be like a long type head, pointy, not a short, fat, big concave head, because that'll just blow out at that speed. I will hang in there, but blow out as well. It depends on the sea. Or you use something like that there. So that's a long head, but that's really weighted heavy, and that'll just burn under the surface. It won't even come to the top. It'll just go along, and that's what they like. Or you go jet head with a pointy nose, something like that type of thing there. So that's got holes in the head, and it'll make that lure look about this big, sort of thing, by its jet. It's different. There's all different types. Another style there. I don't think that one's a jet head, but it's just a pointy head. And that one will. They're all very heavy, guys, compared to normal lures. I'll pass these around actually. Fairway, because you're doing 8 knots. So when you're trolling for marlin, the closest might be just 15, 20 metres back. On those, you're probably running 60, 80, maybe 100. But 60 or 80 metres is enough, I think. Depends. I wouldn't. When we're trolling heavy tackle, we rarely use like 5 rods, and the heavier the line, the less rods. So 130, 3 rods, 80, 4 rods, 5 if you're game, and 50 we might go to. That's where we might keep it 5. So it's all the fish get bigger. It's more harder and more stress when you hook the fish up to get the other lines in. And if you get 5 lines, it doesn't quite work. And if you hooked up a blue marlin, they have a really bad habit of taking short corner lures and that, and they'll just greyhound across the whole lot of the lines, and it becomes a nightmare. And then you probably lose the fish. So less lines out, more chance of getting the fish. Okay. I think last time you guys might have got a little like that style there. That's really good too for the tuna. Do you troll them with wire on? A lot of guys that go chasing wahoo, like a lot of guys just troll for wahoo in deep water. They want to get a big one, they get like a 30, 40 kilo one. and they'll troll wire, but they get bycatch of tuna. So do they take wire? Yes, they do. They don't mind it. But preferably, you run wire on your hooks, but not on your leader. Okay, run on that size lure. I'll be running probably around 200 pound wire. A mono, sorry, or 250, somewhere in there. But the blue marlin can be 500 pounds, 300 kilos. So that's just going to smack that 200 pound leader pretty badly. So you really want 400 pounds. So it's all relevant to what you're chasing. And if you hook up vice versa, the big marlin on the little lure, it wasn't meant to be. But yeah, that's the way it is.
Teasers, Doug?
Teasers, yeah. So if I'm in close, I wouldn't use the teasers. You don't need them. But out wider, it's a big ocean, and the fish are, the bait, everything's far and in between, so you need to try and get them as close as you can. Normally your boat's your best teaser. But yeah, I'd always have a witch doctor or a daisy chain at the back, yeah, or a strip tease or something like that. Yeah. So definitely. On the stick bait rod, I run about 100 pound 1 litre on that is. And on the troll rods up to 24 kilo, at about, 15 kilos, 100's good. 24 kilo, you could still use 100, but you might want to go up to 200. Yep. Because I said some of those tuna are 200 pounds, they're 100 kilos out wider. So, but remember, the distance out wide is at least 55, 60 k's. So it's a bit of a run. You need to make sure you got the fuel in your boat. Simple as that. And you're going out to around this distance. So you probably clock up, normally we clock up about 250 k's for the day, trolling around it there, travelling there and back and whatever. So just make sure you got the fuel capacity for it, because the radio doesn't work very good at there, guys. It's a long way. You've got to use 82 and use a repeater station if you get in trouble. Just remember that. Hopefully someone will hear. That's on VHF. Otherwise, you've got flares. Hope you don't use it. Because there are always the dramas. I always get scared to turn my motor off when I'm out wide, because I think, will it start? It's like, it's always that mental thing in my head. So I just get the motor going forever. It doesn't matter if I'm drifting or whatever. Just keep it going. And we have had a few little close calls out there. But if your radio doesn't work, hopefully another boat will see you, or you can get their attention. You can generally get a radio call out and someone here within about 20 k's, but they won't hear you 70 k's away maybe, if that's your only boat out there. Okay. But there's lots of ships going up and down. But I don't know what station the ships use.
Yeah, I don't know.
Does anyone know? I'd like to know, just for next time. No, okay, cool. Okay, I've got to pass that. I did have some line here, guys. I'll pass this around. So this is 24 kilo, and it's 0.55. So if you look at most lines that are 15 kilos, they're about anywhere from about 0.52 to about 0.56 for 15. But this is 24. It's Japanese product spilled in India, I think it is. Just for cheaper to spill there, I guess. What other products we use? Snap swivels. Okay. Really important when you're trolling anything from in close on the palmy reef or out wider. If you're going to use snaps, to use quality snaps, don't use crane snaps, use ball bearing snaps. Okay, so ball bearing, as you know, when we're trolling around, we hook up bits of seaweed, and that seaweed gets caught in the lure, and you're not watching your lure too good. It can be a deep dive, it can be a skirt, doesn't matter. And the line just twists and twists and twists and twists and twists. And especially mono. And when you go to wind it in, it's just like done I don't know what, a big twisty. And that's generally because the swivel it had on there is not a ball bearing swivel. A ball bearing swivel still won't eliminate all that, but it will eliminate a lot of it until it just gets to the point where it just can't take it anymore and just spins badly. But get yourself some decent ball bearing swivels. Generally speaking, if you're running, say, up to 15 kilo line, I'd be running size 4. Okay, anywhere from 8 kilo to 15, size 4. If you're running 24 kilo, size 5 or 6. And if you're running 37 kilo for the bigger fish, about a size 7 or 8. Okay. If you can remember that. Doesn't matter what brand, they're all about the same sizing. One thing they had to have uniform is snap swivels, not everything else. So snap swivels are important. Hook sizes in the lure like that, do you run single or double hooks? That's a really good question. People ask us all the time. It depends on how experienced you guys are. So as we talk about, and we talk about marlin fishing and everything, I prefer everyone runs, and I run myself, single hooks, because generally, you know, you don't always take out the same mate. You take out other guys that don't know anything about fishing. And if you get a dolphin fish or something that's a bycatch on board, and they're crazy hyper fish, and that second hook's just flicking around everywhere and just waiting to go into someone. So single hooks you got a lot more control because it's the only hook you can visually see, and you're watching what it does. So even on the lure that size or even bigger one, my suggestion would be single hooks. Okay. I don't think Peter does double hook rigs much anymore. They're all single.
No, they're all single.
Even in lures that are that big, skirts like massive sumo or whatever, it's one big single hook, just for safety aspect. We've just seen too many people get impaled on all size lures from that big to that big. They do hurt. Yeah, I've had hooks in me. They do hurt. So run single hooks, run wire up to where you join on the leader through the head onto the skirt. That's when you join your crimp on your mono to your wires. Anyone not know how to crimp? The amount of people we get that come in here, you don't know, mate? No. So my suggestion would be, if you've got anything ever crimped, even in the lures you've got in your bag there, when you bring them in, watch what we do. We'll teach you how to do it. We'll rig them up for you. So when we do the rigging, we don't charge you to rig the lure. We charge you for the hook rig, but we don't charge you to do the rigging, the mono and stuff. And watch and learn, and everyone should have a few crimps and a pair of crimpers on the boat, because so many times you get fouled up and you need to cut it, or you lose your rig and need to re-rig, or whatever it might be, or you get chafed by a marlin and just above the lure. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah. So you need to have just a cheap pair of $30 crimpers and a couple of packets of $10 crimps or $5 crimps, depends on which type you use. Just have it in a little bag in the boat, and you can quickly do it yourself, but you just need to be taught how to do it properly. We had a guy drive down from Brisbane today. How many shops did you go to?
Went to like a dozen shops up there, and no one could teach me how to crimp.
Yeah, and drove down from Brisbane, so we could teach him how to crimp. Yeah. And sorry, mate, but we appreciate you doing the drive. But yeah, so please don't be shy to ask us. We'd love to show you. Okay. Anything else to it on that side of things?
Not really. So
okay.
A couple scenarios.
Yeah, scenarios. Yeah. So this is out in the deeper water, but this scenario will work for everything. But I was showing you how it works. So we're out in, say, 547 metres deep here, guys. I know it's hard for you guys down the back, but I appreciate you just listening.
Very precise number.
Yeah. Sorry? It's all good. It's a good. That's not on close. That's out here. It's around about here somewhere, actually. So this is a couple of little bounds, come up about 80 or 100 metres out there. And they've got bottom fish. They're probably blue eye or bass gropers or something on the bottom there. Gemfish. And we got a school of bait at 150 metres. One maybe 120 metres, one about 150 metres down. And another school of bait up here about 50 metres. So the depth here is like 0 to 150 metres, 150 to 300 to 450, and that's at 547.
Just a real quick one, Doug. Would you ever just focus on the top section or the bottom section, or would you always run your sounder screen displaying the whole depth? Because there's a lot of water in a small screen.
The only time I sound is top to bottom is when I'm trolling for yellowfin tuna or something. Okay. Always I'm looking at that because I like bottom fishing out in the deep water. So I've got that blowing up that old picture that size. But in this scenario, we're doing this. So top to bottom. Sorry. So these fish here at 50 metres, and they've got tuna on the bait school, and there's tuna on this bait school here. You can see the tuna, and there's tuna on that bait school there. These guys here are definitely going to come from 50 metres up to your lure, no problems at all. They'll just come up and smack it. And they may even force that bait up to the top when you drive past and you look back and all of a sudden you see the birds diving. They push that bait up to the top. That's their whole scenario, is push the bait to the top. It's easier for them to catch it. These guys down here, they're at maybe 120 metres. They may come up to your lure but they may not too. So you may either want to do two things. It'll take forever for a burley to get down 500 feet. You understand that? So if you're drifting, you're probably wasting time. You're better off going back home. But you could try jigging it. You can do a few things. You can try jigging the school with jigs, and tuna take jigs. Don't worry about that. Or you could trial deep divers and try and get them down in this area, and then the ratio becomes a bit less. You look at maybe 100 metres difference. So they will come up to 100 metres, no problems at all. But 150 metres is about the borderline where they may not come up to your bait or lure. But as strange as it may sound, we get marlin fishermen come in here, like blue marlin guys, and they're trolling these things that only go down maybe 10 centimetres, and they're on the top most of the time, they go back down again. And they've had pictures on their screen of marlin that are down 200 and something metres, and you see it come up to the lure on their screen. They've got screenshots. So, but I haven't had tuna do that yet, but they probably will. But they're too focused on feeding on that bait down there. That's the problem, I think. Marlin are generally just a lone fish just sitting there, and that's why they come up, I think. That's the difference. But if there was no bait there and there's just that tuna school there, and that was all gone, I'd say, yeah, they may come up to it in 150 metres. But generally they're there because there's bait there. They're not there because they're just swimming around. So if you can remember that scenario, so 50 metres, no problems at all. At 150, which seems to be a popular area, we get a lot of, not thermocline, was it thermocline? Yeah. They're like a static, what do they call it? I can't remember the name.
It's like a layer.
Yeah, it's like a layer, it is, scatter layer. Sorry, scatter's the word. A scatter layer, and that's where the bait seems to be on the edge of that a lot of the time. And that's where the fish are as well. And it's always around that 150 to about 280 metre mark. And that's what I'm saying, a lot of time the marlin in that sort of depth where they'll come up. So, yeah. So you'll generally see that scenario when you're out there in September, a lot of time, or August or October. Any questions on that at all? In closer though, if you're fishing close and you're in say 50 metres, and just imagine that was 5 metres, that's 10, 20, 30, 50, and you saw these guys down at 20 metres, they're easily going to come up and hit these things because they're swimming at 12 metres, so no problems at all. Skirts are going to easily come up to, everything from down here is going to come up to there. That's why the mackerel at the moment, which are down low, are sulking down the bottom. There's so much fresh water. They're still smacking the guys' troll baits that are just 10 metres from the top because they can see it and they'll come up and eat it, you know. So we're lucky in close. And if you're in, like on Palmy, where it's only 20 metres deep, well, it's a no-brainer. They'll come up from the bottom all the time. So just out deeper, you got to work harder and tease them up. But your boat's generally enough as a teaser. You asked before, Stu. Your boat's enough. Yep. So just going to talk about now back to bait again when we're out in this scenario here. So these guys here, if there's bait there, they may not come up to drifting when you're cubing, okay? These guys here will though. They'll come up. So they'll come up, the burlers start getting down around here somewhere. I don't know if they smell or whatever, but they'll start coming up. So when we're doing that sort of thing there, we're using hooks like these, I'll pass these around. These American hooks, they're eagle claw. You got to use circle hooks, so I'm going from J hooks to circle hooks out wider. The fish have got a bigger jaw, bigger mouth, and J hooks just don't get in when you're letting them run. It doesn't seem to work. So we're using a circle hook, and they're hooking themselves. Size-wise, it depends on the tuna size, but probably a 9.0 or 10.0 is what I'll be using, 8.0 minimum out there. In close, you might use 7s or 8s, but out there, 9s, 8s, 9s or 10s. You pass that around for me. So they're good hooks. But about, like, I could do those guys for about $30 a box, but there's, I don't know how many hooks in there, 20 or 25, I think.
Yeah,
but anyhow, but it's doing exactly the same. So heats of burley. This is my bait board here. It's just like all pills just chopped up for the last 20 minutes. And it's exactly the same thing. Just use some bigger gear like those 50 wides, whatever. When you're using like that sort of size reel, even a 30 wide or 30 or a 25, till 25, once you've got the line stripped off and the bait burley's gone down, I drop it back about 25 to 30 metres, and it'll probably get down, so there's not much wind or no wind. It'll probably get down around about 15 metres, I guess, below the surface. And your burley will probably, if it doesn't get picked off by something, will probably be about the same depth. Okay. By the time you drop that out and the burley drifts back and gets down, when there's not too much current, that is, it'll be around about a 15 to 20 minute period. So you'll try and work at least 2 lines, or maybe even 4. But 2's good, but 4 maybe. And you'll rotate those 2 every 10 minutes and throw the burley every 10 minutes. And when you pull your line in, you don't pull in by the reel, you just strip the line in by hand onto the water. And the water will take it back out again. And then you check your bait and it looks okay, you might drop it in the water. I always change it though. In that same scenario, cut the tail off, cut it in half, and go from the bottom and put the hook in through the top. And then just drop it back in the water and throw out your pilchards and away it goes again. And you're rotating it. The burley, some bits might get down a little bit down this way, maybe eventually. And they'll come up, and then you're on. Okay, hopefully. Is there any questions on that at all?
You anchored for that? Or
No, or definitely drifting out there 'cause it's too deep. But in close on palmy or mermaid or on that, you can drift as well, but you can definitely anchor up. Yeah, on the diamond reef off Southport Hill or gravel patch, yeah, I definitely anchor. Just that it's you not much current, you're generally working the burley with you around the boat all the time, and no one else can steal your burley trail. So, yeah. But if you've got a bit of current, you're better off drifting with it because it sort of stays together. It doesn't go away from you too much. But they will come up on a burley trail, but yeah, it depends on the current really, mate, and the wind. Yep. Anyone here got spot lock on their motors at all, or got electric outboards at all? No. Good. Okay, that's fine. Okay.
Sorry, would you
yeah.
use that at what?
The electric motor?
Yeah.
If there's no current.
Yeah.
If you got wind, 100% yes.
Yeah.
Because your burleys, there's not much current, your burleys stay with you
Yeah.
around the boat. So I try to tell my customers, I got spot lock on my motor, I go fish the current, it'd be fantastic, but it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
Because when you put the spot lock on, the boat just goes like that, and the motor's like working overtime, and you drop your line down, it goes like that. It just doesn't work. They're designed for no current windy days. So when you're doing 20 knots on the surface with the wind, you eliminate all that. You just stop still, and you can fish straight down again. Yeah. So please don't use electrics in strong current in deep water. It doesn't work. Or what do you call it?
Like Hellmaster,
Hellmaster,
Spotlock,
that's
or
it.
any of that stuff.
Spotlock, yeah.
On your outboards.
Yeah, it's dangerous actually. Yeah, the boat spec goes around 360s. But we got nice. I'm talking like 3 knots of current, but under 2 knots and under, it's fine. Yeah. And same mate with that. When you got 2 knots of current or under, definitely use your either or. And just another thing too, guys, just on current. If you're going to go that way out to there, you really need to know what the current's doing. So I really don't like fishing in like 3 or 4 knots of current for anything. It's just too hard, and the fish are working too hard to stay in that current. I think they go deep and try and get away from the current. You're better off not going out and wasting fuel too much, even though it's a nice day perhaps, or fishing close, whatever. And you can get that off BOM. You can obviously get rip charts and stuff over the couple $100 a year, whatever. But BOM do a chart that tells you the current, and it's free, and you can see up to a week ahead or 5 days ahead or something.
Yeah.
And it does it shows the current increasing in speed and width and everything off the Gold Coast there. Okay, so it's on the BOM something or other, but you'll find it there. Sea currents, okay. Any questions on that, Stu? Any questions at all, guys, on that scenario? No?
You know your 90 metres, obviously like 40 k's out.
Yep.
Would you just, if you were going out to 400 and start, would you just shoot straight from your 90 metres out to your 400 then start trolling from there? Or would you do the bit
Good question. On the tuna, yes, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't start inside of 400. Maybe 300 we do sometimes.
Yeah.
Unless you see birds, mate, and the tuna. But you know, sometimes we'll stop at 90 metres to have a quick jig on the way out. Maybe get a king or an amberjack real quick, if the scenario is perfect, that is. But otherwise, we're hostile vista straight at the top of it and just keep going. Yeah, it's about an hour. Like if you're doing 20 knots, it's about an hour 20 run, roughly speaking. Okay.
To the start of the 400.
Yeah, and now people don't realise if you go to how many guys here have been to like 50 fathom reef? A few of you have. Okay, has anyone got the guys that haven't been? Has anyone got boats that are around 5 metre size? Just stick your hands up. Yeah, a few of you have. Any people got boats 4.5 metres? No, so most of you got 5 metres. Who has a, besides you, my friend, who has a boat under 5 metres? How's that sound? You got one, mate? Yeah, at 4.8? Yeah. So mine's 4.8 my tinny, and I'll go out to like deep trade, which is 42 fathoms, around 78 metres, but I won't go over that only because I know how bad it gets out there from years of experience. Unless you've got a big 4.8 deep type tinny, you might be all right. It doesn't broach. Yeah. So if you've got all that, good enough fuel, give it a crack if you want on a good day. But otherwise, 5 metres and above, 5.2 metres preferably and above. If you know what you're doing, you can go all the way out to here on a good, really good day. And I'll be out there sometimes in my mate's like 30-foot boat, and there's guys out there in 4.5 metre tinnies. And I'm thinking, okay. But the weather's been not too bad, you know. And it's like a bit daunting. And some are steer tinny. 60 k's offshore. But you know, I haven't guys live up north before I go any further. Anyone up from like Townsville or Mackay or whatever, Early Beach? No one? Okay, so those guys, they go 100 k's in their 4.5 metre tinnies. Like that's normal for them. It's just what you're used to. You go down, you know, Southwest Rocks. If you say went wide for the day, you go, oh, in that little boat game, they go, well, it's 8 k's out. so for them, it's very close, and they don't need to go more than 8 k's because they're already in like 50 fathoms, you know. So it's all relevant to where you are. But up north, it goes so like that, and the coastline goes like that. They need to go the distance, and they just get used to it. It's like, it's amazing still, isn't it?
It is.
Like my mate, Hayden, his boat was, I think he had a 19-foot centre console, but he go 180 k's offshore, out to the outer reef, and stay overnight on the lagoon and come back the next day. So, I wouldn't do that here. That's actually go to Brisbane Seamounts that distance out here. Really, that's not what you're used to, I guess. It's just that we don't have any islands, or we don't have any reef, we don't have anywhere to hide. You hide behind the steering wheel, that's about it. You know, so it's all. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's right. Even they're scary. Some of their waves stand up too. But the main thing out here, when you get further out, is to remember, please, and it happens in close too, is current against wind. That's the most dangerous situation. Actually, westerly wind's the most dangerous situation because that's wind against swell, and that's scary. And the further you get, the rougher it gets. So in winter, that is the scariest thing is if you're going to go wide for the day, it's the best time to go tuna fishing, but it's also the bad time for westerly wind. So you need to look at the scenario and understand there's no 30 or 40 knot westerly blow coming through, which it just does sometimes from nowhere, in the middle of the morning, middle of the day, middle of the night. So if that's not going to happen, then it's generally pretty good and worth going because there's not much current, it's not too bad. In summer, we have like a 30 knot southerly might come up, and you might have a swell pushing in from a cyclone out at New Cal, which might be like it is now, 2.5 metres, whatever. And if you got that strong current at 3 knots against the southerly and a big swell, it stands up and it actually breaks, the wave breaks the metre of white water at the top and just rolls down. So you've got to be really careful at this time of the year. So that's your two scenarios. This time of the year is current and winter's westerly. That's your enemy in fishing out here. Okay. I think that's about it in that scene. It's a little bit early. Any other questions on the tuna fishing? Oh, there's something else I'm going to talk to you guys about. Oh, sorry, this thing. Preparing a tuna. How many guys eat sashimi here? Okay, everyone does, I think. These days we all eat sashimi. Delicious, I love it. So there are kits you can get, but it's more about preparing your fish right from the start. So, like, I'm not I sort of learned from my pro mate, but he done it all himself, wouldn't let me touch it. So it's expensive fish, I guess. But they nick the tail, they claw the head and put it on wire down it and down its backbone and all that sort of stuff. They cut out a section inside its gills to bleed it, and they do lots of different things. There is a kit you can buy, which is this thing here, which has all the above, including the little nicking knife and the corer and the brain spike and I think it's remove the backbone, is it?
Yeah, I don't know. I think that's for the head one.
The head one, is it? Coring it, yeah.
yeah.
Okay, yeah. But anyhow, but you need to do some research on it, do some research on it too, how to use it all. But generally speaking, the main thing you need to do is to bleed it. Just cut inside the gills. You don't need to cut the throat, you just cut inside the gills, both sides. And definitely cut the tail. And if you want to brain spike it in the brain. And they do it from the top on a tuna. This one of these pens here. Does everyone take a photo of that later? You can if you want to. I'll leave it here. You guys take a photo later. Let's try and find the duster. No. Improvised, Stu. Well done,
That's
mate.
it, mate.
That's it. Okay, so if this is your fish here, it's a bit of a fat fish, this one. Well, I don't know what type of fish that is.
That's a beluga whale.
That's a sunfish. It's a bit of an ugly fish. It's kind of a white pointer. But anyhow, and that's his gill there. Generally, that position right about there is the honey hole. Okay, so it's like that soft part above his eye back towards the gills start. And if you put it in on an angle there, it would be a snapper or tuna or whatever. But they do it from the top, but this is where I go. In through here, they'll curl the tail up and the blood just disappears. It's like the karate chop on a squid. Same scenario. Down in the gill section here, if you pull the gill flap up, just run a knife down through the section here, and same on the other side, and blood will just come out everywhere. And on his tail section, sorry Stu, my rubbers. Thanks.
Flat hand, mate.
Yeah, that's flat hand. On the tail section.
So just a real quick one, Doug. Do you brain spike first or bleed first?
That's a good question. I will probably bleed first and brain spike.
And let it bleed out a bit.
Yeah, that's what we do. Normally, actually, a lot of stuff when we used to catch a lot of snapper back in the day was always brain spiked, and then before we threw it in the ice, we'd bleed. It's opposite way around actually.
Yeah.
But I like to bleed first. Yeah. So just around here, they got like little fins on the side here. Just cut it there. Just a little knife slip both sides of its backbone, cut down to the backbone pretty well. There. And in the gill, spike it, and that's about all you need to do. And straight, it has to be an ice slurry or an ice bag, like in the big bags. Just have at least 3 bags of ice in those 1.5 metre bags. They'll keep pretty good. And nothing worse than if you've got no bag and got no esky big enough for your big fish, you just got to have some wet towels or something and constantly change it. You don't want it in the sun if you can get it in the sun on it, because it'll wreck it. You spent all that money to get out there and do it. Don't stuff it. Simple as that. Okay. You've known about the marks. You got that. Any questions on what we've done tonight at all? Any questions you want to know about tuna? Yes, mate.
You know like that pacemaker one you're saying 14 knots?
Yes.
Would you?
Our pacemaker won't go over about 8.
Oh,
Yeah. You mean the lure hard body?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, hard body. Yeah. Sorry, mate. You're going. So
Would you?
there's a pacemaker for cooler head too. It's a real fat thing. It only goes about 8 knots.
Do you reckon that still hit that?
100%.
14?
Yeah. Like you're targeting wahoo more at that speed. I'd be sticking at about 8 to 10. Yeah. And you've got a chance of dolphinfish, wahoo, and tuna. Yep. Yeah. Once you get over 10, the dolphin. I have caught dolphinfish at pretty fast, but they'll drop off a bit. So, but depends how quick you want to get somewhere too, and how the conditions are and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, I think if you're going from A to B and want to maybe just get wahoo, say, then you'd use more the pointier nose type ones and drop them way back. But when you're trolling it, anything above about 16 knots, even 12 knots, but 16 knots though, you need to have a real, at least that 50 size with the drag crank right up. Otherwise, even at strike, it'll just strip line off. It'll pull it out easy. Yeah, you need really an 80 with 15 kilos of drag on it. That little lure just has got so much strength. It's amazing, eh? Yeah. Any other questions? Any questions? Yes, sir.
When chasing bus stubs, is there a technique that longtails like over mac tuna? Catch mac tuna every time.
Yeah, I know. Probably because there wasn't any long tails in there. Like, how do you tell the difference between what they are? I try and work that out too, mate, all the time. I try and look at them, if they're zipping through the water, it's in close, like mermaid, palmy, jumping pin, wherever in close. If they're zipping through the water and not jumping, they're generally spotty mackerel. Could have yellowfin there too. Yellowfin they do jump if they're chasing the bait, but they don't jump like, say, little bonitos and stuff like that. They jump all the time, those little bonitos and that, or little striped tuna. Mac tuna are a bit of a predator. They generally will stay down deeper. You don't know they're there a lot of the time until you hook them up. So, yeah, you'll probably find yellowfin jump more than mac tuna actually. So if they're not jumping and they're zipping, they'll be spotties. If they're not doing much but the bait's getting boiled and stirred, they could be probably mac tuna. Yeah, that would be what I think.
Yeah.
Would you say any different?
Yeah, I haven't really seen too many mac tuna jump.
No, they don't jump much. No.
No.
They're generally deeper. A lot of mac tuna actually down deep, and they come up to the lure, mate. They tend to hang down with the snapper and stuff like that. Pain in the backside. Yep. Any other questions at all, gentlemen?
Can you troll hard bodies and skirts?
Yeah, you can, mate. We'll talk about this tonight. So, so if you want to cover more ground, more species, more everything, run your 2 hard bodies in closer, but at that speed, at say 8 knots or 10 knots, you're generally dropping. Yeah, they really pull line off. Back to those big outfits.
Try and rip the stern out of the back of the boat.
Yeah, 8 knots is about it, really, unless you go those Speedmaster one that were in the sailfish version of that, because they've got a smaller bib on it, or that other Japanese one. Generally, the faster you go in hard bodies, the smaller the bib, and doesn't go as deep. Okay, but you run those in close, mate, and you run your skirts out further. So 2 and 2, maybe 50, because you're going fast, 50, 70, 80 and 100 or something like that. Yeah. But you're not going to do tight turns at that speed. So you don't really need to have them spaced too far apart. They'll all sort of work together as you're turning slowly. Yep. Okay. What are you doing this weekend? Who's going outside? Okay. Weather report. Weather report. Maybe, yeah. So the weather report this stage, Friday's a write-off. It's a go crabbing day, or go maybe prawning, or get your gear ready for maybe Monday. Saturday's also pretty windy. Like, go back, I looked only like 4 days ago, and Sunday was like 3 knots. Saturday was like 10 to 15, wasn't too bad, and Friday was like 15. And I thought, oh, finally, good Easter. And then like 10 minutes later, I looked again, I was like 25 knots, 20 knots. It just changes so quick. I can't believe it. And then it can change back. Last Sunday it changed back the other way. So it can change back. But at this stage, Sunday looks like about 15 knots, maybe 20 at wider. Monday's nice. Monday's like 5 to 10 knots. And Tuesday's like 5 knots. So get a long weekend maybe if you've got an RDO or something, or whatever. But at this stage, it'll probably change, yeah. The good thing is though, the swell's dropping. So the swell by Sunday is only about 1 metre, 1.1 I think. And I think Monday's like 0.9. So Mondays, you can go fishing anywhere, I think, and anywhere you want, and anywhere, yeah. Any bar. Sorry?
Forget about pin bar.
Yeah, pin bar's a bit shallow. Yeah, it probably is at the moment. I know the Seaway day before yesterday, There's only like 3 boats got out. It was cracking right across. One boat sat there for 3 hours, one of our customers. Couldn't get out. Couldn't pick a wave to get out. One of our other customers had a 72-foot new boat. They got a new riv. And they sat there and had 2 goes to get across. And they said it was pretty out there. So, and then yesterday was about, I think, 3 on the sets and 2 metres average. A few boats got out yesterday and they got fish down at Gravel Patch. They did well. No tuna though, unfortunately, but some big wahoo and some big mackerel and a lot of sharks, a lot of heads. The mackerel thing, who's anyone done anything about the mackerel, any writing at all or filled a chart out at all? No, so do you all know about the mackerel closure maybe they're trying to do us at the moment? No? I should just turn that off for a sec there, Stuart. No, they've got a thing at the moment, a paper, discussion paper to fill out, and then they reckon they'll base their decision upon that. But the trouble is the paper's written out for the answers they want that they want to hear. They're not what we really would like to see happen. A couple of them are okay. A couple of them you won't even understand, like how many tonnes should a pros be allowed to take a year. You've got to answer it, sort of. And I wouldn't have a clue how many tonnes they're allowed to take, you know. And some of the questions like that. So, and there's only 15 questions, and like half of them you wouldn't know what they're talking about, and I didn't know what they're talking about. So it's pretty tricky. So they say the best thing to do is to actually print it off. That way you don't have to answer their questions, and you just answer the ones that you want to answer. And then there's a little area there you can write what your thoughts are. I've told them I don't understand those questions, so why'd you ask me why is everyone getting asked the same question? Those questions and things like that, and then send it off. So up to you guys. But if you jump, yeah, it's for Queensland. So this is the funny part. Like currently, it's for Spanish mackerel. Okay, so currently it's 3 Spanish mackerel per person, 6 per boat. That's the limit at the moment. They'd like to see it cut back to 1 or 2 per person, 2 per boat, or maybe 4 per boat. There's no really clear suggestion. Or a closure for 3 months or 2 months, which is our prime time, February, March. And up north Queensland, their prime time, September, October. So what happens is the mackerel start up there soon, and then they get down to us by Christmas time. They follow the water temperature, it's around that 26 degrees, and just keeps following it. Once it gets like 30, they're out of there. They're still there, but they're not many. The majority is down this way. Is there a southern spawn or a northern spawn? Some people say they're 2 lots of fish, but I think they're the same fish. And those same fish go down south because they get like 25, 26 down to Southwest Rocks now, you know, at this time of the year, or before. Then once it gets too cold and the water starts getting cold again, they come back north and get a second hit on them around about sort of May, June, we'll get another hit of mackerel, which we always do every year. And they're generally bigger fish, but less of them because they've been savaged all the way through, on the way back. But the trouble is if they change this regulation, New South Wales, they say amounts for about 15 to 25%, I think, of the 15% it is, of the total biomass they take. But they're allowed 5 Spanish mackerel per person, I think it is, which is fairly high. So we're only allowed to keep 1 or 2. They go to Tweed, you can go down and get 5 per person. So it doesn't quite make sense. It doesn't do the fishery very good. Then on the other hand, if I do this, go back north again, sorry to talk about this, guys, but you should know, go back north again, to what I know, I don't know if it's true or not, but I think it's true, the Papua New Guineans have just done a deal with China, sold them the fishing rights for between like Moresby and the Cape, right? Which is a really good fishery for mackerel, and we've got pro mackerel fishing working in that area too. And so they're in Queensland waters up to the middle of the Gulf, and that Queensland water area will be able to be fished by the Chinese, and the Papua New Guinea has a little clause that allows them, since they changed back to Papua New Guinea to their own country, allows them to fish into Queensland waters right down, halfway down the Cape. So the Chinese will be allowed to fish halfway down the Cape of Australia, and they'll just decimate it, of course. And they're like spending, I don't know how many $1 billion building a port there, probably warships, I don't know anyhow. But, got to get the politics. But the thing is, if they're allowed to fish that, even though our laws will be regardless to what they can do. So they can decimate that same mackerel, and down south they can decimate it, but in here we're copying this scenario. I don't know how it can improve the fishery. I think it'll actually make it worse.
Mm.
And I don't believe their figures. Their figures are based on, like I've been fishing mackerel all my life. I've been fishing my dad when I was like 10, 40 years ago, 50, 45 years ago. And the mackerel we caught back then was the same mackerel we catch now in quantity. Like we go out and we get half a dozen maybe. And we get half a dozen still. I haven't seen much change. So I can't say, they say the fishery is down to 17% to what it was 100 years ago or something. And 100 years ago, they based their figures, like how can you know the biomass back then? They took it off photos of guys standing there, big string of mackerel on the fence. Then they worked out, okay, there's that many in the ocean. Doesn't make sense, you know what I'm trying to say. So it's a real tricky one. But anyhow, won't go involved in that. It's just that when you see 40, 50 years of history of fishing hard, and you don't see things that need to be done, they seem to want to do it. And things that need to be done, there's nothing getting done. That's very frustrating. But anyhow, back to fishing. Okay, what else happening this weekend, guys? Nothing? So anyone going out prawning? No, prawns are on. Big bananas. Did you see the thing we did on Facebook the other day? They're huge. Actually, I counted them, Stewie. 302 prawns, I think it was, for 10 kilos or 10 litres, or it is.
It's good that you got that much time on your hands.
Well, I'm a fast counter.
And what was the biomass?
Yeah.
Tons.
Yeah.
Tons. But anyhow, so it works out like 30 prawns to the kilo, which is, they're good sized prawns.
Pretty good.
They're good sized prawns. Yeah, anyhow. So this weekend, guys, if I was you guys, I'd be getting ready for Sunday, perhaps, definitely Monday. Okay? And the fishing bite is really good. It's like 3 fish. So theoretically, they should be really biting their heads off. And it's all day bite as well, because we come up to the full moon, which Easter is. Okay, so I hope this scenario, you understand what I mean, but like it's all, you've got 3 options. Skirts, skirts and hard bodies, that's one option. 2 is casting, stick baits and metals, and 3 is cubing. So if you stick to those techniques, then it doesn't matter if you're in close or out wide, it'll all work. And you just got to remember what I told you to do, how to do it, and Stewie told you how to do it. And
Avoid the 90 to 300.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, avoid that area unless you want to catch wahoo or dolphin fish and stuff like that. Just not many tuna there. And the other thing I mentioned about tuna too, it's really strange. Like go down, we're in like a bit of a lost ground here for tuna for some reason. But you go down to sort of Cost South, and Southwest Rocks, all the way down to south. There's yellowfin like everywhere. Sydney, yeah, whatever. And the water's like freezing cold. And I've been up New Guinea and fished from up New Guinea. The schools are like 10 kilometres big, and the water's like 32 degrees, and there's yellowfin everywhere, and they're all 60 pound or 20 kilo, 30 kilo, 40 kilo. And we're in the middle here, not that hot water, not the cold water, the nice water, and there's not many yellowfin. I can't quite understand how it works. I don't know what it is. I'm trying to work that one out, and always try to work that one out.
Yeah.
Anyhow.
Yes,
Okay.
no.
Do you cook them at all?
Yeah, so definitely cook them. But when you cook them, Dave, so I cut them into like the thickness of my hand, and about that size portion. Depends how big your tuna is, of course. Particularly the shoulder part. And when I just put a little bit of flour, like a tiny bit of flour, with cracked pepper and salt on it, maybe a little bit of garlic powder if you want, and fairly hot oil, and just sizzle. And once you see it sort of halfway cooked, turn it the other side and do the same again. There'll just be a little bit of brown on it, and when that sort of meets, just before it meets, that's it. Take it off. That's it. You don't need to flip it back over again. You can if you want one more, like maybe for 10 seconds or 20 seconds for the first side again. And then just put it on a paper towel, get that oil off, and it'll be just raw for about 1 mil in that sort of 15 mil thickness or 12 mil thickness in the centre. That'd be really nice. Otherwise, I don't really do it in beer batter like I do white meat fish. I just do it that way. Grill on a barbie's okay too, but the heat, it's too strong. You got to actually run it a bit lower heat. Yeah. Okay. But sashimi's to go. Yeah. Another thing too is it's really good if you do like a lime, lemon, and a bit of coconut milk if you want to do that sort of style and let it cook in the lemon juice. It's really nice that way too. Cut it into strips about the size of a cigarette. Not that I know what a cigarette is, but but that sort of size, you know. Yeah, and that's really nice too. It's like, what's Paul called poke? The way that Hawaiians do it. Has anyone tried that yet? It's very nice. You tried it, mate? Yeah, it's quite good, and it's very like refreshing. Is the word probably to say. Cold. You have it cold. Yeah, but definitely grilled just like that or in the fry pan is really good. Definitely, but sashimi's best. Yep. If you get some, there's different types of soy sauce. My wife's Japanese. I've learned a lot about soy sauce. But you got sweet soy sauce and normal stock standard salty soy sauce. The sweet one, if you get it into a little spray, like a whatever little spray container you use in the kitchen, and pour that into there. Then just spray it over when you eat it raw, before you dip it or anything else. It's really, really nice. So try that. And the secret is not to cut it too thick. Cut it maybe when you're doing sashimi around about 2 to 3 mil thick. It's probably the thickness. And make sure you're nice, really sharp, super sharp. Otherwise you stretch it and it sort of tears the texture and it doesn't taste as good, believe it or not. So you've got to have that texture not destroyed. So a really sharp knife.
Don't they also say that you should stick it in the fridge for 4 days?
Yeah, so and in paper towel, mate. So paper towel it and then put it in the fridge, and you can put a wrap over the top. And if you go to any sashimi shop, not sushi shop, sashimi shop, they'll generally have the shoulder part exactly what you're saying, wrapped in paper towel, and it's generally wrapped as well by clear foil, clear wrap, and it's in the cold part where you visually can see what they're doing.
Firms it up a bit.
Yeah, that's right, mate. And it's sitting in there for 2 to 3 days. But we have it out when we're out fishing raw sometimes. It's too good. Especially those little jelly bean yellowfin you get in close. They're fantastic.
So what's the shoulder of the fish?
Yeah, so the shoulders of fish is like above the spine to the top fin and along the top. So the belly part is the fatty part. So it's very, very good delicacy. So most of deer sashimi sometimes is the belly part, not actually the shoulder part. But the shoulder part's easier to cut and slice and all that sort of stuff. It's a lot firmer. And especially if you do what you're doing. So, yeah. Just get my wife out here. She's a sashimi queen. But but yeah, it's about a sharp knife and cutting on the angle and the right. Just keep it going. And it'll end up off the knife and it'll actually stack itself back the other way. And make sure the knife's wet as well when you're cutting it. That'll help.
Is there fibre in it like a fish?
There's not much fibre. There is on the bigger ones though. I've got a lot of fibre in it, but it's only on what's below between the skin and the meat. So when you skin it, you actually skin about 2 mil of the flesh, leave it on the skin, and that takes off that fibre.
But the fish is like that.
Yep.
Do you cut it like that, or do you cut it like that?
You cut it like that,
Yeah.
on an angle. On an angle, mate. Yep.
Through the fish.
So, I fillet it first, then I skin it, then you got the red let down the middle, the red blood part. So I V that out. That actually separates the bottom and the top apart. And then I've got like a rib fillet sort of thing of the top part. And then I'll cut it on about a probably 45-degree angle, I guess, back towards the tail.
Along the length.
Along the length, mate, correct. Yep, that's it. Spot on. And that's the most delicious part. So when you look at it, it's got like that sheen on it, on the flesh when you go to eat it, you know.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm getting hungry.
Yeah, it's nice. Really nice, yeah. Okay, I love fish. Any other questions? Anything about anything fishing, guys? Anything you wanted to know? Ask Stuart. Yes.
Yeah, I will ask a question. You talk about a lot of areas where we don't know, I don't necessarily know.
Yeah, understand that, mate, yep.
You talk about mud patch and mud hole and
Yeah, yep. Oh, down Tweed Heads, yep, yeah. Yeah, it's just getting the local lingo.
Yeah, but is there a cheat map of sorts?
No, but my wife wants me to do one. We'll talk about tonight. She goes, you need to put it up in here. But if you take a picture of that tonight, that'll get you started.
Yeah.
But what I will do one, mate. I will do one. With all the local lingo terms, we've had the same problem inside as well. And we're talking about inside fishing as well. And we'll just, we'll mark it by numbers, and then you can correlate the numbers to the what is. Yeah, 100%. Yep. Because Tweed Head seems to have the most terminology for different areas. I mean, you probably know that, mate. There's a lot of different local lingo down there. But up here, there's a little bit out the front here, and Jumping Pin has its areas as well. Yeah. But then it's just like 36 fathom, 50 fathom, because how it is those lines there represent the lines of reef, but they actually bend around a little bit. They're not actually straight like that. They curve a bit. But that's the sort of main ridges of reef off the Gold Coast in those depths. There are little patches in between them, but they're the main areas, and they could have sand like there, and sand there, and sand there, and then sand there, but there'll be reef coming out of the sand in most areas in that same depth, even though it's a slightly curved depth, because our coastline is slightly curved, and it all goes with it.
Is that the sort of thing? Yeah, pretty much. But what I'm probably, sorry.
No, you're right, mate.
I'm kind of looking for almost like an old school map where you've just got
Yeah.
broad locations that kind of, because that's got coordinates and then that doesn't.
There is one we do downstairs, which is the Gold Coast Game Fish Club do it. And if you ever want to get into game fishing, that's a really good club to get a hold of. But they do a map, and it has all the terminology for the more the wider areas. So like I'm talking sort of 50 metres and deeper. Yeah. And you can take a screenshot of that or buy one. They're $15, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions at all? Yes, mate.
Do you guys have like a go-to app that you use for reading like weather?
Yeah. So it used to be Coastwatch for me. Coastwatch had everything on it, but now it has not much on it. They're still rebuilding, I think. But I use Windy because it sort of has, it's a really good phone app as well. It has pretty well everything on it, and there's a couple of other ones that aren't too bad as well.
Yeah.
Seabreeze not too bad, yeah. Windy's the one, definitely. Yeah. But it is constantly changing all the time. I use Willy Weather for the tides, but that's about it at the moment, yeah. Yeah.
But you look at three different, they're all so much different.
100%. But even Windy gives you 5 options of different readings you can do. But the beauty about Windy is that you look at you can see the swell. You can change the picture from wind to swell, so you can see the swell coming in. And when it's
swell too.
yeah,
Three different versions of it.
that's true. And but it gives you the next week's idea. So you look at the wind first, you think, oh great, it's dropping off Thursday, next Friday, Saturday, the sun looks not too bad. Then you look at the swell, and hang on, there's a big cyclone went out wide out there. And Friday, Saturday, Sunday, the swell's coming up to 3 metres or 4 metres, so it's like, oh crap. So you can sort of plan ahead, but it also gives you the fish bite too. So you go, oh, 5 knot winds tomorrow, 1 metre swell, this is perfect. And look at the fish, it's like a skinny little, tiny little fish there going, and they don't bite, trust me. Yeah, Windy. Yeah, especially on the app, yeah.
There's another one called Fish Finder as well.
Yeah, Fish Finder's not too bad, actually. I do use that too, by the way, sorry. Yeah. But, yeah, very. So how it works, guys, I always try to emphasise this, it's really important that you understand the best fish time bite is always 2 hours after high tide. Doesn't matter what time of the day it is, that is the bite time, generally speaking. If you can get that time to correspond with daylight or dark, so say it was high tide, it gets daylight now about, what, 5:30?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So say it was high tide at 4 o'clock or 3:30, and at 5:30 it's exactly 2 hours after 3:30, and it's breaking daylight. That's like the 3 fish thing, you know. But sometimes those 3 fish are in the whole day, you know. and that can be when the moon's in the sky all day. It comes up at daylight and goes down at dark. There'll be 3 fish all day long because the moon's in the sky. But funnily enough, it can be full moon when it comes out at night time, but it'll show the daytime bite being not too bad, but generally the nighttime bite will pick up better. Yeah. So when there's no moon in the sky during the day, the fishing's normally skinny little fish. Not much happening. Yeah.
So if you're going fishing for some bream in the Broadwater, where would you go?
Bream fishing in the Broadwater? Depends if it's day or night. So if it's night time, daytime. Okay, daytime. I'd probably be fishing around the Seaway from 5 or 5:30 in the morning, preferably high tide about 7 o'clock, and I'll be fishing where the shit pipes come out there. Excuse my terminology.
Yeah, near that green marker on the corner.
And just where the North Wall bends around, and I'll be probably positioned about 20 to 30 metres off the rocks, off the North Wall of the Seaway, just before the green marker.
What about up the
Jumping pin?
Yeah, jumping pin way.
For bream? Yeah, like...
Is there like a things to look for, or what do you?
Yeah, you're looking for eddies, bait stacked up, and structure like timber in the. So fish night time we used to go out and tie a float off a log that was sitting in maybe that much water at low tide. Knowing at high tide's going to be underwater, but my float would be there. Get the torch out and find the float, anchor up just in front of it, burley up heats, and just smash the bream. And it still works to today, same way. Little techniques there. And burley we just used to use bran or laying mash pellets or something like that.
Laying mash pellets.
Laying mash pellets, chicken laying mash pellets. It's like bran. It's like barley. Sorry.
Barley.
Yeah, and boil the barley so it expands. Add some tuna roll with it. Toss it out. Feed the chickens. Feed the bream in this case. and they just come on big time. Yeah. And you catch them and you cut them open. Not like bream these days, but I used to. And the gut would just be full of the brain, of the wheat. Sorry. Yeah. Any other questions at all? No? Oh yes.
In terms of like prawning, so considering the weather's pretty shit this weekend to go out.
Yep.
Like, what would you suggest for
2 hours. 2 hours after high tide. No, but definitely that was the best time. Trust me. Yesterday, just look for the boats, mate. So you need to be up around Macleay or over at Redland Bay. From Runway Bay up to there, doing 22 knots is about an hour and 10-minute run. Or you take your boat at Redland Bay and then go out from there. It's only 1 minute. And you'll see the boats from the boat ramp. You'll see there'll be at least 40 boats clustered. Come east, there might be 100. Yep. And you just get in amongst them. Like you push off each other, and some guys you clang, and they say, "I'm going to throw lead over the top of front of your boat." But it's part of the parcel. Everyone's very friendly. It's not like Palm Beach. They want to stab you. It's pretty good. Yeah.
Watch out for the fine 12 ounce.
That's right. Yeah, on the Shanghai too. But no, and mate, but definitely get there just after high, and it'll be. They send me over Redland Bay for the first 2 hours, or nearly about 2.5 hours, and then once it gets to a bit past halfway of the run out, so it's always run out time by the way, then they seem to be coming on we call it the salt works, but it's the southwestern corner of Macleay Island. It's about 60 foot deep there, so you need a lot of rope on your net, and they're big prawns there as well. And yesterday afternoon they smashed it. I heard Ross was going out around mid-morning, so he was going to go down there as well. So yeah, you're welcome. You'll see the boats, mate. Don't worry. Easter time is like the prawning mecca. It's normally the mackerel mecca too, but this year we've just had too much rain. The mackerel are there, and they'll be here for another 2 months yet. But we just got to wait for the water to clear up a bit more. But when we get a chance to get out there, I don't know if you saw the footage on Flat Rock, I think it was, of Point Lookout. It was on Facebook last night. One of the guys I follow. It was there's like they was startled by the clarity. You could see 100 metres, guys diving over there. That's swimming along, so clear. I didn't think it was that Point Lookout. So it's coming, but I don't know why they've got clearer water than us. But Moreton Bay is pretty clear at the moment. But I think we've just been hammered around this area. Logan River really dirties us up a lot. It's like silt coming out. Thanks, mate. We just thought about sashimi. Yeah. So, guys, we'll do the draw. But thanks for coming along tonight. Hopefully you learned a bit. Our next seminar, is that next week?
Next week, Thursday. Back to Thursday.
We're supposed to get some mackerel footage. We got some mackerel footage, but we're trying to get some snapper footage now. We got some the other day, but it's on snapper on lures. So in that one, we talk about what we all do, which is plastics, the octo jigs, which are like the ball rubber jigs, and vibes, and probably won't do much on down rigging because you can't get down riggers. Haven't been able to get down riggers for 4 months now, so crazy. And we'll talk about what else on trolling.
Yeah, maybe a little bit of trolling up in Moreton Bay.
Yeah.
But not much.
Yeah, but it'll be mainly plastics and vibes and the octo jigs. Yeah, but a lot to learn, and it's very productive. I took my son Jack out the other day. I got smashed. He got a nice one. Okay, let's do it.
Ready, mate?
You can do the draw, mate. Okay, so first prize, a bit over $300 worth, guys. 350 was it, or 300 something?